living off of this bike here for 4 years, and at first it was kind of weird. Like, I just wanted to try something new in my life. I've just decided to live off my bicycle. I've got everything that I own down to like a 75-liter dry bag, and that's everything I own. And nothing fits really on this bike unless I make it. This winter I biked. So I live around here. This is my home, yeah, I just this winter I try to get someplace warm every winter. And this winter I decided to go to Southern California. So I was gonna bike out there regardless because there's a good climbing scene out there, and I like to climb. And yeah, I just decided to hop on my bike. But my friend was saying that he was gonna be meeting his dad out in what is it? Not 29 Palms, Palm Springs, California. And he was gonna buy a van and be headed out there. And he was like, "Oh, I can give you a ride if you want." And I was like, "Dude, don't get a van. Get a bike, and we'll bike out there." And somehow I convinced him to get a bike, which is awesome. So he was going to get a car, I convinced him to get a bike, and he lives off a bike now too. Right on, yeah, that's pretty sick. And anyway, so we're pedaling out there, and we actually convinced a couple other friends to come with us that have bikes, that they weren't going to give up like their life to do that, but they were going to come on the journey with us. And I bike all around everywhere, just like that's what I do. But like to get other people to do that is like really fun also, to come like join and be part of that, because it's just fun. So anyways, we bike out to Joshua Tree, California, and now I'm going to break into this story because this is where it's going to get fucking weird. So we mailed out our climbing gear, and it took us like a little less than a month to get out there. We went to visit the Grand Canyon and stuff like that, but we were hanging out in Joshua Tree and climbing, and then that whole government shutdown thing happened. And so I was like, well, I came here on a bike. Like, everybody's fleeing in their cars. And I'm like, well, I rode my bike here, and it's cold as fuck everywhere else. And there was a group of people going to Mexico. And I don't have a passport or an ID or anything like that. But I was like, just something within myself. I was like, I'm going to go do this, and then, like, it's going to be okay. Yeah, later. And, yeah, so I was like, I just knew like this would all work out. We wanted to go find this like legendary climbing place called El Gran Trono Blanco, and we ended up finding it. Just like getting across the border was super easy. There was a guy with white gloves just like waving us on, and I had probably, more like 6 ounces of pot in my pocket. We thought it was legal down there. So we're just like, weird thing keeps happening after the other, like serendipitous events that like most people aren't like aware of in their life, but happen in their life every day. And I've just like been working on becoming like more spatially aware. And we get pulled over by the police, and I look over at my friend. It's just he and I, and I'm in this country. I don't have ID, passport, anything. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to jail right now. I'm going to jail right now. And I just had this fucking sack of weed in my pocket, and I'm so scared. I'm like, well, this is like, maybe I shouldn't have come down here. But it takes my friend out of the car, frisks him down, and just like doesn't find anything. He's like, I know your friend has pot, and I don't speak any Spanish either, no Spanish. This guy drags me out, and I like hit the stash of pot in between the seats, where if you looked for it, he would find it. And I knew I was in trouble anyways, and get out of the car, and he's like, do you have any like marijuana on you? And I'm like, no, but I live out of my pockets, right? There's always shit in my pockets. I'm just emptying stuff out on the hood of the car, and he finds like papers, like rolling papers. He's like, oh, for weed? Like, I'm like, oh, no, not for weed, like for cigarillo, for rolling cigarettes. And he's like, oh yeah. And then I handed him my like bag of tobacco. He like opens it up, like shakes it around, pours some out, and there's like a tiny speck of green on this thing. He's like, oh, and he's like happy he found this. He's just smiling, having a great time. And I was like, oh shit, well, I'm in trouble. He's like, oh, this is a big find in Mexico. Like, now he's like starting to rip apart the car, and he like takes like, it doesn't take him very long to find this huge sack of weed. And I'm like, oh no, like, of course. And he finds this, he's like, firing his gun in the air, like, he's just psyched, like, yeah, shit, this was even before we made it to like the climbing place. I was like, well, I'm going to jail right now. And we're like, okay, how much money do you want? Like, because that's how like the system works down there. He's like, I want, like, you're either going to spend 3 days in jail, 3 días in jail, or $300. So I was like, we don't have fucking $300. Like, I live off a bicycle. Like, no, that doesn't exist anyway. So we came up, like, we asked our friends who were behind us, and they pulled over in their car too. And they tried to search his car, but his car was so broken that you can't open it from the outside. You have to crawl through like the driver's seat. And so that worked in their favor because they couldn't even get the doors open. They were like, no, and they already found the pot in like in our car, and they knew we were together. So we came up with like $86, 50 peso, and he was like, this is not enough. This is not enough. You know, he's got like his handcuffs out. He's like, oh, you're going to jail. Like, this is it. I'm just like, oh my God, like this is not how this is gonna end. And sure, he was like, all right, flashlights. So you guys have flashlights, and we all like climb and stuff. And we all have headlamps. And okay, we gave him all the headlamps. So $86, 50 peso, and 3 headlamps. And he was like, all right, you're good to go. He hands them with a huge sack of weed back to my friend. And he was like, what? Like, what? He was like, and then the cop was just like, oh, you don't want this? And we're like, no, we'll take it, we'll take it. Well, yeah, we'll take it with us. And we finally end up making, we feel like we're driving away, like, all right, wow, we just got away with that. All right, like, no problem. So we make it to the climbing area, and it's time to, like, we spent like about a week there, and my friend was starting to get super paranoid and just worried about his car getting broken into, and just like us running into like more trouble. And we buried the weed, which ends up being a lot, and so we know exactly where it is. And when we go back and headed to the border, we passed back through Calexico, or Mexicali, and I didn't have an ID or a passport. I had my food stamps card and my debit card, and I just handed that to the guy at the border, and I shaved a Hulk Hogan mustache also to make myself seem more American. And the guy like took it, looked at it, was like, all right, get out of here, and that was it. I came back to the United States, no problem. The whole thing was just like perfectly serendipitous. I guess that's the end of that story, but that's only the continuation of a much greater story. So, like,
a much greater story.
Yeah, dude, that's like, honestly, shit like that happens almost every day of my life.
Oh my God. Well, I